Hi everyone, welcome to Earthster's training session. I'm Heini from Earthster and I'm a product expert and partner at Earthster. and I'm super happy to see all of you here today live. And I want to remind you that in case anytime you lose the connection or the video stops working, just reload your page and it should automatically continue. And the event recording will be always available here in the event itself, LinkedIn event. And nice to see you all. So today I'm going to show you a demo on Earthster, how it works. And in case this is the first time you're attending, Earthster is an LCA tool that is designed for you to be able to make, in a visual way, better LCA choices. So for example, improve your products and you get an instant visual feedback on how you can do it, where are the biggest hotspots and what you should focus on. I'll show you in a moment. And anytime you have a question, please ask in the chat. I'll try to answer in the end of this event in the Q&A session, or if you don't have time to go through your questions, I'll answer them later on in the chat. And as a reminder, there's about maybe 20-30-second delay, so I will be asking you questions and I will have to wait until your answers because the streaming is a tiny bit ahead. But let's get to it. Let me show you my screen. This is how Earthster looks like when you're logged in. This is one of my demo workspaces. And you can have many, many different type of workspaces, and every one of them has its own users, all members who can access that particular workspace. If you have many, you access them by the side panel, and you can see that I have access to many. And some of them I have only view rights myself, for example, the one we call demo. When you have view rights to a workspace, this is how it looks. It says view access only. I'm able to see all the cycles. And now actually that's one of the latest updates we did, is that when you click on a draft cycle, you're able to view that also. We call this is a live release, even though the cycle doesn't have a release yet. This is where you can see that it's live. So you can view it. And a normal cycle that has a release already looks like this. It doesn't mention draft. You click on it, and then you're able to see it. And as you can see, this cycle, I'm in view mode only. So if I open the jar of production, I'm not able to edit any of these data. But if I would want to edit this, I just go back to the workspace and I click here, duplicate. And I would start using it. But today, for the demo purposes, I'm going to use one of our mouse cycles that many of you have seen already in some of our videos or in my own training sessions. And what we're going to do is duplicate one called this one. This is the onboarding version that I have created. I do the same thing. As you can see now, in this workspace, I have edit rights, so I can even delete it, export it, move it to another workspace. But what I want to do now is to duplicate this so that I don't mess around with that cycle. At this moment, you can see that this is a copy. So now if I start editing this, the original stays intact and I can mess around with this cycle as much as I want for demoing purposes. And what you see here in front of you, let me zoom out a bit, is the full life cycle of a computer mouse. And as I mentioned, Earthster is super visual, and you can see it already from this representation, is that the biggest environmental impact of a computer mouse comes from the use phase itself. And if we dig deeper, that where is it really coming from, then let me show you. When you see all others as a dynamic bundle and you want to see what's in it, you can lower the threshold to 0 and then you see everything. Now here's a good example. So the use phase of the mouse has electricity consumption, which is clearly so much bigger than end of life. And the end of life has a really small one. Now let's dig into it. Where is the impact coming from? This is the drawer of a use phase. There is a custom process called electricity consumption, and another one called a bundle end of life. A custom process is a process where you can have, in a way, a multiplying factor. So what you see here is there's two processes: electricity consumption while standby, while the mouse is just waiting there to do nothing, do something, and while you're actively using the mouse. And if we go into here, there is we have added in there the electricity itself, and here's some information. Where is that number coming from? How is it calculated? But now the interesting thing here is that this is two custom processes under each other. So the first custom process says that we are using this mouse for 10 years. During the per year, here, you can see all info per year. So all the processes in that custom process we have added per 1 year of consumption. So if we go into here, hour while standby, you can see that the calculation here is per hour. So we calculated that in a full year, it's 7,160 hours, the mouse on standby. And these are the assumptions, and this is how many kilowatt hours it uses during 1 hour. And this is how you use custom processes. So you can create really smart and complex structures to represent your product or service that you're trying to do an LCA for. And let me show you exactly. A bundle, in the other hand, is just a group of cycles. If I go in here, cycles or processes, we call them the same thing. So yes, exactly. If this is the first time you are seeing Earthster, a life cycle assessment in Earthster, we call them cycles. And the inputs to your life cycle assessment are called processes, or you can also add one of your own cycles into the current cycle itself. And it's really smart because that way, when you update one of the cycles, you can update the current cycle also. And especially really good for custom processes. And now, as you can see, that this is a bundle. I have here 3 different processes. One for getting rid of the actual equipment of the mouse in the end of the life, then getting rid of the box, and then I have even added here a process that I have zeroed out. It's a placeholder for me, which means that when you add extra processes, you're able to play around with the data. For example, it's this simple to do what if scenarios. Let me show you. So now our total impact is 3.1 or 31.85 kilo of CO2 equivalent. If we go back here and I change something, so for example, we put that we don't incinerate the cardboard, we put that to 0, but we are recycling it. And then it automatically calculates, and let's see, it's still the same amount. So that wasn't a big change. But this is the way you can see instantly what is the impact. So for example, let's go back to a more visual one. So in production, we have, so the mouse is broken down based on components. If you would take apart the mouse, what you would see. And as you can see, we have electronics and the structural elements itself. And inside there, the structural elements, for example, has the plastic cover of the mouse and steel bits and pieces, whatever is needed for the mouse to stay in a mouse shape. For example, in here, you can see that there is steel as a process added, and also milling of the steel is taken in count. And let me show you. And these are also custom processes. So now what happens if, let's imagine we're going to make a much sturdier mouse. We're going to double the amount of steel in there to see how it influences. So instead of 15 grams, I say 30 grams. And as you can see, it's straight away out, like it's already calculated. The visuals were really little. Let me put another 0 here so that you see. And it automatically updates the visuals, also the picture itself, the representation. I'm going to put this back to 15 grams. And yeah, these are the basics of when you have already created a cycle in Earthster. This is how it looks. This is how you can also share it with your coworkers and work on them together. So you can divide the work. That someone creates the structure and another person adds all the data in there, because through bundles and custom processes, you're able to put placeholders where another expert is able to say that, oh yeah, this is the amount of data that you need to add. So it speeds up your process of doing an LCA. And we always recommend that you do it in an iterative way. So any data that you have already, you start adding it onto your cycle. And the moment that you need to dig out from more data from your departments or accounting, then you can either invite them to your organization to add it themselves. But if you don't want to do that, you can do it yourself. But the coolest thing is that you're able to show them visually that, look, here's where the biggest environmental impact is coming from. But this is now how the basics of Earthster works. And now it's a good moment to pause for a moment. And do you guys have any questions? I will go through the feature updates. We have many updates that is behind the scenes. So the way you see it is improved visuals, faster calculations, and security updates. But we have also a few of that you can actually try it out yourself. So any questions? It's a funny moment that I need to wait for the answers. Meanwhile, we're waiting for answers. I'm going to show you how to add a process. So this is the same thing if you would create your own cycles and you are adding processes. Let's imagine that our mouse, we are updating this mouse and want to add an LED so that it's one of those flashy mouse. What I do is, because an LED is part of electronics, I would put it into this bundle and I click, or actually, let's do it the other way. I'll create a new custom process or a bundle. Yeah, both. Doesn't matter which one you start. The way to add a custom process or a bundle is next to the button Add New, there is a tiny little arrow. You click there and you click Add Custom Process or a bundle. This time, we're going to add a bundle. And it looks like this. You click on the pencil icon to rename it. And let's see, lights. We call them lights. And this. It's done. And here, I'm adding processes now to this particular bundle. And I'm going to find from our database that has currently EcoInvent 3.6 version. Really soon, we're going to update it to 3.9, and you will not have to do anything to get updated. So it will be automatically updated. The only thing you'll have to do is update your own cycles. And I'll show you in a moment how. And also, we have available USEIO. That's an input-output database. And later on, we will have XUAs, but not yet. Let me show you. The way you search is you just write the word you're looking for. And you can add multiple ones. And this one is a really simple one. So I just wrote LED, and I have many, many options. 135 options. Now, the next step is, of course, you read the actual what the process name is. And when you find something interesting, these tags are helping you decide that, is this what you're adding, a material product? Is it a processing? Is it waste management, energy? Let me show you. So for example, if I wouldn't want to see material products, waste management shows up, infrastructure shows up, let's say, goes all out, energy shows up. So we have many tags, and the whole idea of them is that it helps you choose. But this time, because we're adding actual LEDs, we are going to use a material product. And there's two really good options. One is light emitting diode production, and the other one is market for light emitting diode. And in my case, because I just want to add into my cycle the actual LED, so I want to choose the market for. That's the generic information from EcoInvent telling me that what it's needed to, what is the life cycle basically for that LED that I want to add into my process. When you have many options and you don't know which one to choose from, let me show you again. You click here. This is the info button. You click on it, you see all the data that EcoInvent is giving you as a user, that what is related into this process. And the best thing you can do now is you can view the cycle and like how it looks. So you click on the button view as a cycle, it opens a new tab. I'm going to share you that tab. Now what you're seeing in front of you is the EcoInvent process called market for light emitting diode. All the EcoInvent data is always added in production, even though it might have distribution. Usefish usually not. So distribution it might. And you can explore the data visually. And you can see I'm going to put it again down to 0 so that we see all the different inputs. And for making diodes, the biggest environmental impact is coming from, of course, the diodes, so the LED production itself. But as you can see, this process has already transportation in it, and actually 2 different types of transportation. And look, what you do is when you're exploring visually, you can click the button Explore and dig even deeper that what is this particular process is built off in the database. And you can go really deep into the database as long as the actual data is connected like that. All the way to the end you can explore. And as you can see, you can dig really well into what really goes into that process, and that helps you choose better. Now let's go back, sharing this tab instead. Let me see exactly. I click here and I do want to add it. I click Add Process. The next step, I can set up how much I'm utilizing this input in my lifecycle assessment. And it auto suggests that 1, but because it's a unit of kilo, it's like, no way, I don't need 1 kilo. I'm going to put, let's put 0.0001. So it's a 1 gram. We can put 1 gram of LED. That's it. Here you can see that the original cycle that I'm using is this. I can click Done Editing, or what I can do is I can rename the process for me to better know, for me and those who consume this cycle, that what is this for. And I can just call it LED. Like this. It saves. And now if you go back here, I have a bundle called Lights. In there, there's an LED with a small impact, and I have now updated the cycle itself. Then the total environmental impact, or like to climate change, it has increased. Then currently, if with a normal license, you have access to 5 impact categories. And probably you don't see my drop down. When I'm sharing a tab, it's not visible. We have from recipe 2016, we have damage to human health. Let me show you the diagram like this. If we open this, you might see some visual changes. Damage to ecosystems. The impacts look really similar. Damage to resource availability. Now there was a bit of change. Climate change, what we were showing before. And the last one is water use. Now, what's really cool is if you have a full eco-invent license, and if you do, please contact me. Send me an email. I actually put it here. Send me an email at heine@earthster.org, and then we activate your eco-invent license in Earthster so that you get access to extra features. If you don't have one, send me anyway an email and we can get you one. Now let me go back here. Exactly. So with the full eco-invent license, you can get access to more impact categories. And just today, before this session, I was playing around already the new view. And what will happen is here, there will be a new one called Other, and you will be able to explore the data in a visual way for all the PEF impact categories, and also recipe endpoints and midpoints, and you have access to much, much more data than these 5. So I really recommend getting a full eco-invent license. And those are really cool to have if you need more data than just the 5 impact categories. If you just want to know the environmental impact of your product and make better decisions, you don't need it. But if you want to do particular type of reporting, for example, EPDs, greenhouse gas protocol related reporting, you need them. And yeah, those are about the impact categories. But let me see, I can see that we have some questions. So the question was, where do you get your material data from? I assume that question is related to this mouse and the data what we got, that how much metal and plastics and similar is going into a mouse is from the internet averages, looking up average computer mice and see what is in there, and that's the one. But I'm not sure if that's the question that you were really asking for. So if I didn't answer correctly, please specify again. And another question was from Jackie, can you show how you would include water use in a process? Oh, yes, that's a good one. Water use, the way you add it. So when you have straight interaction with nature, you always add it into exchanges with nature. It's a different tab. So every drawer has, like every stage has its own drawer. This is production. Here you can see info. I can put generic info here, change the geography, and the geography influences the search results, that what it shows you first. Then all the processes, so the inputs to your cycle, and exchanges with nature. And for example, water, you add like this. You click add new, you type water, and see what shows up. And you have a lot of options. And as you can see, because these are exchanges with nature, the terminology is a bit different, the tags are a bit different. And you can see that whether it's an emission to air, a resource that you're using, is it an emission? And for example, if we need to add water, I would add it as a resource, water. I would add it as unspecified. But now what's interesting here is you have, yeah, you don't see my drop down. There's a huge list that specifies what type of water you're using. For example, here is fresh water from a lake, from urban area, subterranean. And if you don't know, just leave it unspecified and you click add exchange. And now what happens is that I can add here, for example, we need 1 kilo of water to wash the electronics. Another way of adding water, so this is as an exchange. And if I'm correct, I think you can add it also as a process. I'm not sure. Exactly, processing, irrigation, water prompt, market for, so depending on how you're utilizing the water and where you're using from, you either add it as an exchange or process itself. I hope that answered Jackie's question. Sorry, I was trying to read meanwhile the questions. Okay. Let me see. So now you've seen how a cycle looks like, how to add a process, how you explore it in a visual way, and what helps you choose which one is better to put. Now the next step is normally what you want to do is maybe to compare, especially when you're making changes. So now, for example, we made changes, and as you can see, the environmental impact, that was the water use. If we go back to climate change, the environmental impact of total climate change is the same or a bit bigger than before, but the water use is bigger. And if now I want to compare this cycle to the original one, because I have already made changes, the next step is I need to create a release. Now, how do we do that? It's super simple. Here in the bottom corner, you can see that I have updated this cycle 2 minutes ago. It's in a draft mode, and I have the link here, issue a release. Now, what does a release do? I click here. A release creates a snapshot of my cycle. So here I say what I have added, or what is the state of this cycle at the moment. So for example, added water and LEDs. And I click issue a release. Now what happens from clicking this button, I can see what has changed. And because this was a copy, that was the first change. So this was our first release. And you can see that when we created it, this was, yeah. So that's the first release. If I would have created the release before, you would have seen the previous amount, the value of the impact. And this one doesn't look pretty, but I'll show you with the other one how the visual changes look like. And releases are important because you need that to be able to share your cycle. From here, I can, for example, this one, as you can see, it's fully public. So if I give you the link, get link to share this cycle, I'm going to add it as a comment. Link to the cycle I'm demoing it. Here, I added now on LinkedIn. All of you can access it because it's fully accessible for everyone. That means that even if you don't have an account, you can view it. That's a super good way of keeping your stakeholders happy. If you want to, you create a cycle of your product and you can put it out even on Twitter for everyone to know that, okay, this is where your environmental impact is coming from. That's full transparency. And it's up to you whether you want to actually fully share or not. And I could decide that I won't share more, but since I shared the link with you, I'm not going to change the settings of this. But the important part, now we have a release and we can create a comparison. I can do it from here. From within the cycle, I can already click compare. What you get here is that cycle on its own. The next step is to go to the settings with the mini menu. You click settings. And on the bottom here, it says add new reference. And this is the search for comparisons. You're able to add here your own cycles, any publicly available cycles in the system or the ones that you have access to, and any processes, for example, an eco-invent process. But now I'm going to put our own. So I'm going to put the demo mouse. You have to remember the name of your cycle. And here you can see that this is the one we're working now with, and this is the one that I have created. And I click add cycle. And I can select many more. So for example, I have added that. The next one, I want to compare it with, I know that eco-invent has such a thing as pointing device. Here, let me see my notes, which one I wanted to add. This one with cable. So I add, for example, this one. Here you can see that I have selected 2 ones. And now a really good trick, if you don't remember your own cycle's name, what you can do is write your own organization name here. So our organization is called Earthster. If I write that, I can see all the cycles that I have access to through either they're my cycles or someone in our team who has done it, and I can add them. But we're going to add these two. I click compare. And then this is how it looks. As I'm going to close this tab here. In the comparisons, you're comparing with the 5 main impact categories. And what you can do is dig deeper into them and see the effects. So for example, these are the differences. When you click on a particular stage, like this one, you see it relative to each other. And then you click back to all stages, back to all categories, and you see all of them. And this is a really visual way of comparing that. When you have changed something, how does it look? And for example, now if the pointing device is distracting us and it's not in a way that you want to see, you can even reorder them. Or you can just say that, okay, I want to take it out. I don't want that in my cycle. And then we go back here. Sometimes with comparisons, you might have to reload the page. Exactly, and then it updates it. And they look really, really similar. We have made such small changes that it's not really visible. Or do I have even, yep, I have the copy. Now, this is also important for releases because a comparison takes the last release you have. So if you have made changes in between, but you don't have a release, you don't see it here. So it's important to do releases. Let's go back here. So those are comparisons. Really good for doing what-if scenarios, to visualizing what really changed, and especially if you want to have something more tangible than just trying to remember that, okay, what was their environmental impact? What you do is create a copy of the cycle, do the changes, and then just compare them to each other. Yes. Now, Jackie is asking, can you show how the water use for that process shows up as an impact? Yes. Let me see. So we added our water use here as an exchange. And because water itself, this one, it's a resource, we're using it as a resource. It doesn't have a CO2 impact. But if we change, you can change the impact categories either from here, from this part, or if we go back here, you can also change it from this icon. It says change impact categories, and we say water use. It says 1 cubics, what's that? I don't know how to say it in English. Cubic meter, 1 cubic meter. And this is how it looks. So now when we're in water use, that's the impact. And you can see that electronics has the bigger one. And this is where it all's coming from. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions? We have a bit less than half an hour left. And now you know more or less how to use Earthster. One thing that I didn't show you, but that you can do on your own, when you click here, create new cycle, there is kind of like a wizard helping you go through setting up your own cycle, how it works. But we're not going to do that now. The next thing I want to show you is, yeah, exactly. I already showed how to create a custom process. Now, there's an interesting trick with custom processes that you can also export them as a new cycle. Let me show you. Let's take from here this cycle. In use phase, we have great custom processes. For example, if I want to export the custom process called electricity consumption, I click on the name, I go into the info tab, and I click export as a cycle. This is a cool one Because what happens now is I'm gonna make of this custom process a new cycle, and anytime I update that cycle will reflect in this cycle. And this is what this are asking, Ronald. Are you sure? And we are saying, yes, we are definitely sure. Now what happened is it took me already to the new cycle. It's called electricity consumption. I can rename it. When you export a custom process, it's always smart to check the scale of it. So what we have is years. We could add new functional units in here if we would want, but this time we don't want. And now what I want to show you is what happens if we change anything here. Now let's say we have less time on standby. So we move that to 6 and this to 2. I made changes to here. Their total environmental impact is bigger. Now the next step to do is I need to create a release. I click again, issue a release, updated hours. Issue a release. Then we get out from here. And look what's going to happen here. We go in here. I'll show you. A moment ago, this was a custom process, but it's no longer a custom process. Now it says that this one has become a cycle called electricity consumption. So I'm not seeing here what is added in there. It's consuming my own cycle. And we are saying that we are using 10 years of it. And look, here it still says that 10 years is 22.41 kilo. The reason to that is the next step we have to do is update the information between the cycle that we are using and this current cycle. From the mini menu, let me show you here. This is the mini menu. You go to the one called data sources. You click on that one. Here you see all the different sources that you are utilizing in this cycle. As you can see, we have 14 eco-environment processes and one from Earthster, which is our own organization. And it says that this is an electricity consumption and there is a new update available. I could check where is it used, how the process looks like, but I know that I just made the changes. So I just click update and look, that's the new value and update it here also. So this is always what you have to do if you're utilizing your own cycles or when you are asking your suppliers for data. For example, here, let me show you. Here is what you do. So for example, this cycle, I could ask straight away from our supplier to give me data, and you do the same way. I can show one existing cycle that has that already. Now, this was related to releases. Really important to remember so that you have to do releases, otherwise the changes will not show up. And the place to find it was data sources. Now, what I wanted to show you also, so we go to the original version that has many, many different releases, how it looks. You can, okay, this is also a boring one. There's a small changes has happened to this cycle, but this is what you see when you have made a lot of changes. It's in a visual way what has happened to your cycle. Let me go back. I mentioned supplier invitations or supplier data. We call those connected LCAs. I have one good example is I think LCA of Earthster had one of those. So we have Earthster is designed for product LCAs, but you can use Earthster for doing organizational LCAs and EPDs and different type of LCA, so different type of methodologies. What's important here is that you utilize bundles for creating the right structure, what the standard is requiring for. And here is one example. This is not according to any standards. This is just based on how we talk internally about our processes and what we are interested in seeing, that where is our biggest environmental impact coming from. Another interesting here, what I wanted to show you is also the data sources here. No, this had the same. This has only hours, but you can see that I'm also utilizing USEIO processes in the same cycle. So it doesn't matter whether it's echo invent, whether it's kilos, cubic meters, you can mix and match. It's a sort of hybrid model. What? Yes, let me check my cheat sheet. Okay, so back to releases. It's an important topic. You need a release to be able to share a cycle, to do a comparison, and another thing, to be able to download the data with the PEV data, if you have a full echo invent license. So I went to the cycle settings. In the bottom, there's export cycle. And here you can see, if you have the full echo invent license, you have the chance to click and say that, yes, I want to download the PEV data. And that way you get access to the whole impact categories of PEV. And you can choose the release itself that you want to download. So those are for releases. Good to have and to remember to use them. Now let's go back to this demo. This. I mentioned briefly the greenhouse gas protocol and how to use it. I actually have a template, and this is related also to one of the new features. I have created a cycle called the greenhouse gas protocol. This is a publicly available cycle. Now that I open it, it looks empty. It is not. It's full of bundles, but because there's no data in it, it looks empty. So when you click on production, you can see that I have scope 1, 2, and 3. And in there, for example, scope 3 is full of juicy bundles. Let me open the drawer itself. That divides the data based on the categories that greenhouse gas protocol is asking for. And I even added in here information, what you need to add in here with links, and even the processes itself, some of them have information that what type of data you need to add in here. Now, this is on purpose available on like in Earthster publicly, and you can use it. Let me give you the link. So we go to, wait, not to settings. Look, if you did this, what I just did, that you clicked somewhere wrong and you want to access the other mini menu items, you click on the icon again and it opens it. So you go to the sharing settings. This is already public. I get the link. And now I want to show you also what you can do with how you can search. So if I'll give you the link, but let me show you. I'll create a new cycle. It's going to be an empty one, just so that you see what to do. I click add new, and now I have two different options. Write a keyword, like for example, I know that it will show up if I just put greenhouse gas. So as you can see, here is the cycle. You can do it like this. You see all the description that I have added in here. Another way of doing it, when you have gotten a link from someone, what you do, instead of writing it, you add the link itself. And now you have only that. So you know exactly that this is what you're looking for. You click add process. And because this is a template and doesn't have any data, this is a bit useless like this, if I add it like this. What I can do is, so I click done editing. I go in here again. Let me see. This is a sort of workaround when you're using someone else's cycle as a template for yourself. You click on the info button. It opens all the descriptions. You scroll all the way down, and what you choose is import as a custom process. Like this, we say yes, we want to import it. Now, it loaded all the ones that was in there. So for example, now if I click scope 3, I can see everything here and start filling it out. And this is how it looks. But now the funny thing is that my production starts from here. So look, exactly. Instead of saying scope 1, 2, 3, what I can do now, another trick is you can take this one, you go to the info, and you can say export as a cycle. You say export, and now you have a new one that you have created based on that, and it straight away looks how the original did. And let's see, I'm going to rename this, that this is from export, just so that I know that it's a different one. And this is a really good way of using someone else's cycle as a starting point for you. And this way we could even create joint projects together that, for example, one thing that many people has been asking for is that a model for an online event like this or an online meeting. And unfortunately, EchoInvent doesn't have any data on it yet. There is okay alternatives when it comes to the USEIO, but there's no good model. So if you're up for it, it would be awesome to do a joint project together and create one that would be really good to represent and other users can use also. If you're interested, just contact me and we'll do an open source project. Now let me see, I can see that there's more questions. Mihail is asking, the mouse is relatively simple product. What about products like car seats? You can model those, all the little bits and pieces, everything you can do. The important thing is that you use the bundles and custom processes to group the information. Because now let me show you how a cycle looks like if you have not done any of the groupings. Here we have one of our assignments, and this is a toaster. Let me see exactly the copy one. This is a good one. So a simple model of a toaster, but there's no bundles in it. Everything in this cycle is added straight away as the inputs. That what inputs goes into making a toaster. And this is how it looks. And as you can see, now if I even move the threshold to 0, there's a lot of data, and this doesn't help you as well to make decisions. But now, if this would have been broken down at all the plastic parts, the structural parts, the same way as the mouse, you would get easier data. Or not data, the data is there, but better insights, how to do it, what to improve, and where to focus your efforts on. And there's no right or wrong way of doing it. This is up to you. How do you feel that you want to represent your product? Is it through all the materials combined together? For example, you could put all the steel things together. Or is it per component? For example, a car seat, all the textiles, the structure. So I would put everything separately, that in a way that when you're having it in your factory, that what are the pieces going into each other? Now, that is a complex or more complex LCA. You have two options. Build one cycle like this and have all of those as bundles, or create for every component its own cycles and add them together into one cycle. So for example, a cycle for the fabrics and cushions, the cycle for the frame, and all the other bits and pieces goes into a car seat. And you can just put them together where you compile all of them and see how it looks. You can do it both ways. Let me see. And talking about cars, we have such a concept in Earthster as templates. When you click Create New Cycle, you saw this before, you can choose to start with a template. Now, for example, if I write here car, this search is a different search than the previously what I've been showing. This one, we have about 440 templates created based on the input-output database, so USEIO, in combined with data that we have gathered about the use case of the products. And for example, here is automobile manufacturing. I click here. It pre-selects it already here. Before I start even the cycle, I can click around and see that, is this the one that I want to do? And I'm like, yes, I do. I want the whole scope. I'm gonna call this car. And I click next. Now, the next step is to set up how much of these cars I'm producing. I'm gonna say that I want to know the environmental impact for one car. So I just say one. Instead of unit, I'm going to rename it as car. When you're using these kind of templates, you need to set the value for the template itself. And this is the money that you need to produce the car. So for example, let's say this is a cheap car. We put $10,000. And it will multiply everything. So once you have used the template, you set this value. After that, if you decide that, oh, it was a $20,000 car, you need to make a new cycle. So changing that value won't do changes anymore. And now this is something different when it comes to other tools. Earthster allows you to have both a production amount and a functional unit. So for example, a functional unit for a car would be, what would I say, 300,000 kilometers. Like this. I could add passenger kilometers. So you multiply it by the amount of people fits in there. Or I could add, 20 years. So this car is gonna be used for 20 years. And the important thing when you're adding functional units with the production units, that they need to be equivalent to each other. So you cannot say, no, I'm not going to say bad examples. So they need to be the same. So if you decide that you are putting 10 cars, you need to multiply these by 10 to be equivalent. And this is how it looks. This is from a template. Look, production of the car, what the USEIO, the database creators think that goes into producing a car. Probably here we would find bits and pieces for the car seat even. Yeah. Seating, interior, there's even a process for it, which is super cool. Tires, everything. And then what you would do the next thing, if you do a template, you go ahead and adjust the numbers to your production itself. So it's a really good way of doing a fast, like, let's see what it is. And for example, here, if we say that, we are using $900 and then everything you update, and you can say that we don't have other parts. You can just delete it. You can swap it to an equipment process and make it iteratively better. And this is how you use templates. They are good for fun, good for comparisons. I don't recommend it when you want to create a complex LCA that requires peer review. I think it's better to start from scratch. But it gives you a lot of good insights that what processes could be used and what you can find. That's how, for example, we have created our own organizational LCA. We took a lot of these examples and made our own. Okay, Jackie's asking, can you show how to use data from USEIO? Perhaps procurement of something in the greenhouse gas cycle that you just showed. Let's do that. So we go back to my cycle. That was in here. This one, as you can see, it's scope. No, we need to go into scope 3. If I put this, for the example, it doesn't really matter. So let's find procurement. If we have, I'm sorry, I don't remember what is in the greenhouse gas protocol. This one is a good one. Business travel. No, actually, let's add some services instead. This one, services. I go in here, I click add new, And for example, legal service. Let's see what we find. Here you can already see that there is a new tag, usage. USEIO has such a process called legal services. And now if we go in here you can see what they considered for this. The same way you can view it as a cycle. And we can also just see what do we get if we have service. There's many different type of services, but now let's just add the legal one. It is add process. And now the tricky part with using your CIO is that you need to evaluate the value in dollars. So if you use euros, you need to have a conversion rate. And I recommend that you add it in your notes that you use a generic conversion rate that you're using all the time the same. So don't change it based on that today it was a different currency exchange rate than yesterday. Stick to one and use that always. And and the way you add the numbers is you need to add it what it costs for you. So let's say you have paying $100 and yeah, $100. Now, when you're using these, you have to remember that what was your functional units. Here we didn't have anything useful, but for example, in our own organizational LCA, that was for a full year. Now, is this $100 per month or per year? And in this case, I imagine this per month. So that means that we put 1,200 for the whole year. And this is how you use USEIO processes. So you need to know what is the amount that you're spending on and or how much would it be worth. For example, let me show you that we've been doing in our own. There's many online services that are for free. Google Maps, WhatsApp, there's many one of those. Now what you can do is use proxies. Here, let me see, in our sales and marketing is a good example here. I'm utilizing for representing online events or Google Ads and similar. The process I'm using is internet publishing and broadcasting and web search portals. That's what I use. But this is something that I was thinking that now what is the value of using WhatsApp? You have to guess. You have to add there a value that you think it would cost if they would charge you money for it. For example, 10 euros a month. Or you can compare it to how much would be, a phone contract or something like that, when it doesn't have a value. Because if you, your result will be wrong if you're just assuming that, oh, we don't spend anything on it, it doesn't have an environmental impact. That's not true, unfortunately. You do have an environmental impact, but you have to guess the value. And what's important when you're doing such guessing and making assumptions using proxies, always document it. Document your assumptions, why you chose that, because later on you might change your mind and update the number. And when you document it into the description, others can see it also, that, oh, okay, that was the reason. Good to know. We have 2 minutes left. It's amazing. We've been talking a lot. And I show you one of the feature updates. There's 2 other things that I mentioned that now you can view draft cycles. So if you're just viewer in a workspace, you can view it. No longer gives you an error. And another thing that's now already live, and I don't have time to show it, and that's going to be for the next session, is now when you invite a supplier to give you their LCA, so when you click the request LCA from supplier, if they don't have yet an Earthster account, they start kind of like under yours in a way that the system will not ask them to upgrade to anything. It will let them do the LCA, communicate it to you. But if they want to create any other LCAs or share it with other customers, they will have to choose their own licensing plan. So this is made super simple for your suppliers to get data without them needing to think that, okay, which plan I want. And that's helpful. But I'll show you that next time. And yeah, our time is up, unfortunately. So all the other questions I will be answering in the chat. And remember, you can also ask them on our forum. Let me show you, where is the link? Here. This is our forum, so earthster.org/forum. There you can, it's meant for these kind of communications, that if you have any questions, you want to interact with the community, showcase your LCA, you can do it there. So sign up there. Otherwise, if you don't have an Earthster account yet, go to earthster.org, sign up there. And if you ever need help, support@earthster.org is the best email to send questions to, and we are here to help you. Thank you all for joining me. It was a really lively conversation, and I enjoyed it a lot. Hopefully, it was a good session for you, and see you about in a month. Bye-bye.